Hi, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Stelios, and for chairing. And Wendy, I don't think she's here today, but she invited me here. Last year, I think I did it at Katsi Sark. It was a year ago. But I actually haven't been back to this rehab for about 4 years. I was feeling a little bit anxious about it because I think the last time I did some service and I dropped and somebody had fallen off the wagon here, and why I felt bad about it because a lot of the people that I was in treatment with were back here, and it sort of gave me a horrible feeling in my. I just felt like uncomfortable because it felt a bit heartbreaking that they didn't get it and they were just sort of done this 12 steps and everybody was. You get so many people next to you that you form a relationship and a bond with, and due to this disease, it's like heartbreaking that a lot of the people that I thought had got it were back here. So I sort of drove back, and then today I left so early because the last time when I drove here, sick and desperate, it seemed to take forever to get here. Today I was like an hour early, but. Yeah, but I'm glad that I made the trip, and there's a whole lot of new faces. In fact, I don't recognize anybody, which is good. Yeah, it's just probably the last time I was driving down here. I was very, very sick. Everything in my life just was completely collapsed. Everything that I feared had all come to pass, which I'll go into detail. I was gone through a divorce. I was a 24-hour-a-day drinker, which basically means I slept, and when I woke up, I drank. I had no off switch when it came to alcohol. I think my mother said I looked like my father before he died. 2 weeks before he had died, I was really sick, and I didn't have an idea of what to do. Before coming here, I'd never experienced the AA or the 12-step program, but I needed to change tactic because I think at the age of 35, I'd always been a big drinker, but as it progressed, I was 41, and the home that I'd owned, everything that I'd owned, the family had gone. I hadn't spoken to my son for a year and a half. The house was sold, and I was just stuck in addiction to a point where I was so sick I couldn't even see customers. I couldn't even. Not only my hands were shaking, my whole body was shaking. I just didn't have a clue of what to do or how to do it. I was so full of resentment. And that was the biggest thing for me, was resentment, I think. Because I'd come through a divorce, and I think my whole attitude in life then was to blame anybody else for the way I had turned out. But as it goes, like rock bottoms do, I fought it, and I fought it, and I fought it. And until all the fears all came to pass. And I was staring down the barrel where the last bit of money that I ever had in my account was to come here with. And I had a God experience about a week before that when I'd got on my hands and knees and I'd asked God to please help me. And in that, things started changing. Like I came here on my own will. I wasn't trying to save a marriage, it was gone. I wasn't trying to save anything. I had no plan of what to do or where to go or how to go about it because I was too sick to do anything. I couldn't work, I was shaking, I'd lost all hope inside me to do anything. Even our biggest client, I'd lost. And then I've got these two beautiful children who are now 21 and 15. And although I didn't think about suicide, I was just breathing. I don't know if you've ever experienced that feeling of just breathing. That's all I felt like I was. Everything had gone. And all hope. And then I got here. You see, I'd seen on the internet all these brochures. This is the most beautiful house. And we were just we were just talking about it, how beautiful it was in the brochure and everything else. So obviously I rock up here, and it's completely different. Took my cell phone away, laptop. You know, even at this point in time, I still thought I was somebody and I was important, although I had no hope. And I remember the first week was like, it was torture. It was, but I needed to be here. I needed to break that cycle of the alcoholism, and then I also needed just time off just to break the cycle of where I was going, because it was just going to a point where I was staring down whether I'm going to live or I'm going to die. And either one, I didn't know which one it was. So when I got here, I was still full of resentment. The resentment was my biggest one. I'm not a resentful person, I never have been, but I think because of everything that I'd lost in my mind, because everything was about money in my whole life, of how much I had, where I was going, aspirations of grandeur maybe, but now I had nothing. So I felt worthless. That feeling of worthlessness, it was huge with me. And the feeling that I wouldn't be able to look after my children was the guilt that was coming to me. So in this midst of blaming of why my life has gone wrong, I didn't know how to fix it because nothing was working. Like Scott shared yesterday, he's a great friend of mine, and we've been in recovery together, but I don't know if he told you, we used to drink together. So this is one of those that you don't normally find, two friends that have come through that drink a lot together, and then I found recovery, and 6 months later he found recovery in the same place. But yet we are so different in character, but we're all the same now. And that's where this fellowship is absolutely wonderful. And how I'll explain to you that I wasn't the number one type of person with recovery. It took me a long time to find recovery. Although I didn't drink, I'm saying to find serenity. Because I got here, I think I was so far in self-will my whole life, and it had worked for me in different stages in my life, where self-will, I was quite successful at it. But now, it got to 41 years old, and it all gone. So I needed to take a new way of life, because I knew I was going to die. I suppose I'll start from the beginning. I've got an older brother. He actually just got married on last Saturday, and I was the best man. And it was lovely to be a best man, sober, and being able to help, and being able to be useful to my mother and the people that were coming around there. And people getting drunk, I could drop them home. Normally it would be the other way around. I was always the party animal before I really fell off the wagon. Successful drinking, once we're in rehab, I think I soon realized when I got here that once I was a 24-hour drinker, and then I was introduced to the 12 steps and the book, and then they sort of told me, the game's up. I'm never going to be able to drink again, well, not successfully. So I always sometimes say alcohol sort of gave me up more than I gave alcohol up, because it had defeated me completely. I had no control over it. So it was easy for me to recognize that I was an alcoholic. I always knew I was an alcoholic, but as alcoholics who grew up in that environment, it felt natural to me. In our home, my father was an alcoholic. He died at 53, alcohol related, and I wouldn't have made 42. And so yeah, but that's not an excuse for me either. I think I grew up very well. I can't blame my mother and father for anything. We didn't want for anything. And yeah, I was growing up, although we were with alcoholics, I didn't know any different. I thought it was quite cool. You know, for me it was just a way of life, and being in that environment was a way of life. So for me, I didn't see it being anything wrong or to be ashamed of being a big drinker. And me and my father were very close, and I think we became very close at the age of 13, because that's when I picked up a drink, and me and him became very close as a result, because we had that in common. But we did some lovely overseas trips, and I always have fond memories of it. But I do remember in his last years, he looked very, very lonely, and very desperate, and unhappy. And also, I found that in my own self. Whereas the progression of alcoholism gets to a point, and then the fun stops. It started to affect my shaking, started to affect the way I was thinking, and I wasn't progressing in any way that's actually important, like emotionally. And I think once I'd got through a point when I got divorced, I think I couldn't handle anything emotionally, because any problems that ever happened in my life was always easy to blame somebody and to drown my sorrows. But now, I didn't have an escape route, but then thank goodness I arrived here. And then this place changed my life completely. But I think when we were introduced to the steps, I was a bit confused when I got here, because I was being told what to do, and like as far as cleaning floors, doing this, doing that, I didn't expect that. I expected somewhere as a break and to gather my thoughts. When I came down and I was thinking to myself, is this going to be my last drink? I said, I don't think so, but I'll give it a bit of a break, just to let the fires calm down and to reevaluate my life. So this is what I was thinking. Meantime, I was half dead, I was sick as a dog, and I had no point or clue of where I'm going or how I'm going to get there. So I had nothing when I got here, but yet I had this pride in me that I was still something special. Now when I got through here and I introduced to the steps, I started reading the book. And then once I read the book and started reading the stories, even in the woman's stories, that was me. And then I started to realize that if I'm going to choose to live, I have to do it properly or not do it at all. But saying that, I think when I got through to the steps and I got through to 4 and 5, they were going through about my part in what went wrong. I was still to that point where I was too sick to even blame myself. It was always somebody else's fault. Blame was my biggest character defect. And it had been since before I started drinking, obviously. And it took me a while longer, even after I got out of rehab. When I got out of rehab, I still had resentment. I still had bitter resentment. And that didn't just go. It just stayed with me for a while. But I did know, I took the suggestions, which are actually not suggestions. That's the program of recovery. It is a suggestion, but I found it to be, as I got out of rehab, I was thinking in my own mind, I'll go once a week or twice a week. But as I got out, that's why I try and urge people, if you don't like an AA meeting or it doesn't agree with you, find another one that does agree with you, because I'm sure if you pray to God, He will send you to the right place. That's been my experience. So I did the 12 steps, and I got out of here, because I also knew that I had to provide for my kids. I'd lost everything, so I'd moved back to my mother, which for me was a fear because I never wanted to ever do that or even dream about that, but there I was. And I found it to be brilliant, taking it easy. You know these things that they say to you. If you go to AA, and then after that I joined the Hillcrest AA group, and old Geraldine, the Irish woman. I don't know if any of you met her. Yeah, she's awesome, but she tells you as it is. And then I engrossed myself in that. And within that year, I suggested no relationships. Now that sucked because it did. But as I got out, all of these things just came naturally because it was in my own natural ability to want to. When I was married, because I enjoyed the pub and my own life, I shift my responsibilities onto my wife. Now I'm blaming this woman and blaming everything for something that went wrong. But there I was giving away, look after my business. I'll get the business, you go and look after it. You go and do that and I'll give you money, no problem, I'll do that, just leave me alone. This I was always blaming, but I can only see it now, a couple of years later, while I'm in, that this is my character defect. This blaming, anything that went wrong in my life, that I was now blaming everybody else, I've turned it around now and have a look at myself and say, you know what, I've got to see myself a part to play in everything, every choice that I make. That it's not somebody else's fault all the time. And doing that has set me free. And I think it took quite a while for me to do this. It took way after going out of rehab, first year, second year, third year. In the fourth year, I think I finally got it. But I didn't drink. I think the reason why that I haven't picked up a drink is from the very first time I got on my hands and knees, God took that away from me. For some reason, I have never honestly been sucked to drink. You know, I had that like desire that couldn't go away. So I can only attribute that to the God of my understanding. And also just following what it says in the book and the sponsors and the people here. Just go to your meetings, get on your hands and knees morning and night, do a personal inventory without having to think about it. Normally that would be a choice. Instead of being a choice, it's now just do it. And which I did do it. And so they said recovery can be easier, it can be hard. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. The recovery for me has been quick in certain parts, very slow in other parts. But I'm pleased to say that in 2016, it was, funny enough, probably one of the hardest years in recovery for me. When I got out of recovery, when I first got into recovery, everything sort of went according to plan. Even with my resentment, business went well, doubled up. 2016, I bought a house. Gosh, it was quite awkward because I had to put such a big deposit down. But cut a long story short, by the time I'd moved into the house, I didn't have enough money to keep me going. So it became like financially hard for me. But funny enough, through those hardships of buying a house, then letting it out, then moving into a small place and having to get rid of whatever this arrogance that I had in my own self, got me to fix the rest of the stuff that was wrong in my life, like the resentment towards my ex-wife. The humility came inside me, and I feel like I'm now healed of that. So that last year, although it was hard financially, for all my whole life I've been thinking about money. Now I didn't have it, but that sort of sorted out whatever the other problems that was blocking me from having serenity. So 2016 was a hard year. It was a year that I needed to have, and I'm grateful for it. I'm also grateful for being an addict and even going down and having such a hard 3 or 4 years of just despair and fear and losing everything. I can now be actually pretty honestly grateful for having that. Or if you look at it another way, like my father, who never got, although his addiction got high, he didn't lose everything. But then he ended up losing his health and died a very young man. Now that I'm sort of getting to 47, I'm looking like I don't want it to end. Like, because the recovery is now something that gets better and better, and sometimes you're looking at it and you think, oh shit, it's not getting better. But I look now and I think after 5 years it's been absolutely fantastic, because it's finally changed John Livingston. It's finally changed who I am and changed the course completely from where I was going. So never mind how much money I ever had, or how much I ever thought I had, or my arrogance or whatever, that has now changed. And that I can attribute to the people that are here. And Don, the stories, and I still remember those days when you're coming through and I'm thinking, yes, this guy's a gangster, man. But he's here and he's humbled himself to putting his life and other people first amongst himself, even going through operations, he had tubes sticking out of here. But he was standing here and he was helping people, and that was amazing. And also the friendships that I've made in recovery. Like Scott yesterday was sharing here, and just watching him grow in recovery over the years. From where we were, sitting in the pub, moaning and bitching about our lives and how everybody's wronged us and this and gambling and drinking and losing, and it was just a life of, what was it? It was bullshit. That's all I can think of. It wasn't anything sustainable, and also getting to know the God of my understanding. It's been wonderful, because He does work in our lives. Sometimes when I don't think He does. But sticking with the AA, it's the best thing for me, because it gave me. It's not like, okay, I can go to church on a Sunday once, or this gives me a purpose, and it gives me people that I can identify with, and people you can grow with, and you can see each other. You can visually see people improve in front of your eyes, and it's like a wonderful thing to be able to grow and seeing other people grow alongside you, instead of at the pub somebody gets a job and you're all jealous of him, or this one's bragging and that one's bragging. It's a complete different thing for us. It was also pretty nice being, as I say, going to that wedding and being able to speak. When I was an alcoholic, I would never even been able to talk. I would be in complete nerves. I would have been a wreck. The AA has given me this, given me today, and I only have to worry about today. I don't have to worry about tomorrow. If I do worry too much into the future, I get anxiety. If I look in the rearview mirror, there's nothing there that I can look at my life and say, geez, most part of it was pretty good, but I don't have to sit and live in the past. I can live in today, and I can share today that once you get out of here, it does get better and better. And for me, I've just enjoyed even the bad times. Not that it's been unbearable. It's been for a reason. Everything has been for a reason, and I identify with that instead of blaming somebody else for what's happened. And that's been my biggest thing to overcome. But had I relapsed, had I gone back on the wagon, I wouldn't have been able to get to all of this. And it's nice to be able to share after like 5 years sobriety that I never thought I would have. But because I do it from one day to day, if I feel like I don't need a drink today, and I pray to God that I don't drink, and I say thank you for the day after, tomorrow I'm probably going to feel a lot more going to feel the same as I did today. My life will no longer have to be complete highs and complete lows. I can live life basically feeling the same, happy and content every day, as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and keeping my own side of the street clean. Now that was also one of the first things that I'd learned when I came here. Is like, just don't worry about or take somebody else's inventory. That was my biggest thing. Is even when I got here, I think the first week at Don, or even if you remember, it's like you'll have somebody sitting next to you that's been 3-4 months here. Then they go out, and then 1 or 2 weeks later they freaking relapse. And then when I first got here, I thought, what the frick am I doing here? Why am I here? This is not working, obviously. I'm taking everybody else's inventory. And that was where I was. That was my character defect, although I didn't pick it up at the time. Of course, because I was always right and everybody was wrong. But then I realized this is my recovery. It's got nothing to do. I have to remember this is my recovery. And taking somebody else's inventory or willing somebody else or putting control onto somebody else's life, doesn't matter even if it's your wife, your husband, it's not going to work out. In my experience, I have to worry about my own recovery. And that is the biggest thing, I think, that I've had to learn to do, is stop controlling everybody else's life. But I just can do what I can do for myself. And it's rather attraction rather than promotion. Whoever's wronged me in the past, it's not for me to make right or wrong. It's for the God of my understanding to do as or thy will be done. And through that period of time that it's taken, that has been the thing, is that God does things for me what I couldn't do for myself. He's done that to me. And so I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about having to control anybody else's life, as long as I'm doing the right thing. As far as my children are concerned, my son is 21, he's going 4th year of varsity. I've been blessed with both of them. He hasn't shown signs of addiction yet. And my son lives with me now, whereas these things would not have happened. The relationship I have with my daughter is absolutely brilliant, both my children. So nice to be able to have an honest, you can look at each other and it's just beautiful. It's now even the ex, I don't fight with her no more. This used to be a bone of contention for years, even after coming out of treatment. There were certain things I couldn't fix for myself, but I knew by just keeping on with the AA, it was giving me hope back, and that things can recover, and that as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'll be okay. We'll have a bad day now and again, but it's not going to give me an excuse to drink. And so as I sit here and I try and say, some days are hard, I know, because I'd done so much damage before I got here. I didn't expect my life to be easy when I get out, because number one, I had to financially get back on my feet. That was hard, especially you got the 2 kids there. I've got to now go back to the people that I pissed off, and most of them were the people that were paying me. So I think in my 5th week I got out of here. I went to the hotels or did a lot of work for, and I made amends with them. These were immediate amends. The amends that I did with my family and my friends, I didn't have to say sorry. I just had to be sober and show and just live my life as God wants me to. And the AA suggestions were giving me that, steering that path. Now we're going into AA, the meetings and the sponsors are very important to me, because I found myself, although I wasn't drinking, you could I'd get myself into, like you'd be going along a path and you'd start veering off a bit. You go to AA meeting, come back. And that's basically how the AA has sort of guided me along. Because you'd go to a meeting, sometimes I didn't feel like it, but but you'd go anyway. But that's the meeting that would give me the most knowledge, all the answers that I was looking for, and that gave me the hope to just keep on going. I know I haven't spent enough time to talk, but I think I've had enough. So thank you very much.